This episode is sponsored by Greenwood.
My graduates from my school being Forbes, bag drop.
Bag drop.
A mic drop, bag drop.
Bag drop. All right, guys, welcome back. EYL. We are in LA, sunny Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And this is something that we've been looking forward to for a while. It's going to be a dope conversation. So, healthcare. It's actually fitting because we just spoke about this on Market Mondays.
I was just thinking that.
Healthcare is the biggest business in the world. It makes up 24% of the American budget, which is the biggest by far.
Mm-hmm.
Second to that is the military, I think, of like 15%. So when you think of businesses, a lot of time we think of, a lot of different industries, but people don't necessarily think of healthcare as a business. It is a business, the biggest business. It's recession proof, it's everything proof.
Big business.
People always die. People always go to the hospital. People always, get sick. So it's one of these things that has been around since the beginning of time. So
it isn't going anywhere.
So today we have the privilege of speaking with not just any entrepreneur, an entrepreneur that has been in the business for a very long period of time and has been extremely successful. Tommy Duncan. So you might have heard him when we mentioned his name in the Rick Ross interview.
Yep.
He has a company called Jetdoc, and Rick Ross is an investor. I think he invested like $1 million into the company, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so we mentioned him during that interview, and we spoke about it briefly, but he has a vast career in the health industry. He actually sold his first company a while back, netted about $1 million and a half, and then he sold this other company and netted a whole bunch more money. Yeah, over 100 million.
It's called 9 figures.
Yeah, for sure. So, and now he started Jetdoc.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting conversation. I'm sure a very educational conversation, and we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge our brother Dame Dash, who we have a mutual relationship with. So Dame actually just wrapped up a movie on Tommy's life called The Prince of Detroit.
What up, though?
What up, though? That's right.
So shout out to my brother Dame Dash. We was at his house yesterday, and he showed us the trailer to the movie, and he was very excited about it. He's very excited about you as an entrepreneur. Gave us some background information. So shout out to Dame.
Yeah.
Right.
Shout out to Dame. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, no, it's good to be here, man. And it's at Prince of Detroit Film on IG.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta check it out.
Dope.
But here's something that's funny. You talk about healthcare. It is by far the largest economic engine in this country, but it's ugly money, so no one really pays attention to it. It's not entertainment, anything sexy like that. But I just got back from Paris for Fashion Week. It's at the hottest show, Balmain, and I was there with a group of 10 couples, which were the VIP clients for the country. And out of those 10 couples, at least 5 of the dudes were in healthcare.
Oh.
So you think about fashion, all this sexy shit, Cardi's there, Offset and all that stuff. Yeah, that's a part of it too.
Yeah.
But the folks with the money is actually spending, they're in healthcare, right? So like Rashad, I live 10 minutes from where we are. And my neighbors, most of them, are in healthcare.
That's interesting.
We in Hollywood. They ain't in Hollywood, they in healthcare.
Yeah. So how'd you get started? All right, you're a black man from Detroit, Michigan. So how did you get started in healthcare? Because the interesting thing that Dane was telling us, he was like, make sure you ask him about this. Like, it was like his family is already in the business. Like he actually already had the information and the knowledge, and he grew up in the industry, and that's something that's very rare,
right?
Especially in our community. Like we don't even go to the doctor majority of the time, and we have a bad relationship with medicine, unfortunately, and doctors. So let alone actually being in the business.
Yeah.
So how did that go about as far as your family and then you growing up in that?
Yeah, so I did. My mother was always been in healthcare, and she got with my stepfather in about 1990. So the time I was 10 years old. And he was entrepreneurial, she was academic. They came together and ended up buying a hospital. It's one of the last for-profit black-owned hospitals.
What's the name of it?
It was called Southwest Detroit Hospital, but they renamed it United Community Hospital. They bought it from HUD. It was a $75 million hospital when it was built, but they bought it for $2 million because it was in receivership, bankruptcy. So they bought that, and then they coupled it with a HMO, health maintenance organization, essentially an insurance company for low-income people on Medicaid. So they operated that through the 90s. And then, so when they operated, I grew up in it. So literally when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, I was on the sales team, and I would go door to door in the projects, in different communities where there was a large population of people, and go door to door and ask people to sign up for Medicaid. My parents' company was called Ultimed. So I grew up selling people on health insurance for low income. And then the other time I was actually at the hospital painting the basement, being a janitor and all that kind of stuff. But through that, by osmosis, I learned the business. And through the 90s, they had a business. I think at their apex, they're doing about $40 million a year in revenue, which at the time was a whole lot of money. Now things are different. There's a lot more money out here, but then that was a lot of money. They employed the most black people for any black business. And that's how I grew up, Then I went to Florida A&M, got my MBA in 5 years.
FAMU.
Yeah, Rattler.
The Rattlers. He went there for a year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who did?
My brother.
All right, what happened?
He got homesick. He went to St. John's, went back to New York.
He got homesick from fam? I ain't never heard that.
Y'all probably was there around the same time.
Nah, that's his story. That ain't what really happened. That's what he told y'all. Nah, you probably got some babies running around. Your fam was amazing. But I came back with my MBA and I thought I was going to take my family's business to the next level. And unfortunately, around the same time, they ended up losing everything. So, what most black businesses do, particularly then without mentorship, which is what you all are providing, which is what is missing in our community, is mentorship. So what happens for us is those that are entrepreneurial gumption go out, and then usually, like anybody else, we are met with failure, right? It doesn't go right. And then a lot of times, unfortunately, we don't try again because we're scarred financially, emotionally, and all that kind of shit. All that kind of stuff. But that's where the wisdom is when you have the challenge. And so the right thing to do is come back into it and try again, do it smarter and be successful. But most people, for whatever reason, don't do that. But my parents ended up investing everything in a hospital and HMO. So much so that when it all went under, they had no money in the bank. Like they put up the house.
All the assets was in the business.
They put it all in there. So we had the biggest house in Detroit. They literally put it up trying to save the hospital when it started going under versus realizing your business is important, but it's not you. It's separate. It's a separate entity. So treat it as such. But of course they didn't. And then it was just like, American Gangster.
When he sees the house?
Huh?
Which part?
When he lost the house?
They lost the house. They lost the furs and everything. The diamond. My mother had a 12-karat diamond ring, probably worth $1 million now. Had to hawk it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Lost everything. But for me, then I decided, I'm going to take it and just build my own company and live on a legacy. So I did it. So I did that. 26, I started my own healthcare company, my first one. Yeah. And then sold it about a year later.
That was CCS?
CCS, Care Compensation Specialist.
Yeah.
So what was that? What kind of company was that?
So there was this dude who used to work for my parents selling insurance. Like I mentioned going door to door for Medicaid. Well, he was a real smooth guy. Kind of looked like a DeBarge brother. I can't name his name. But anyway, I heard that he had started his own company doing Medicaid enrollment for hospitals. So he had got this partnership with the CEO of a hospital in Detroit, and the whole business was someone's uninsured. By law, the hospital has to take care of them, no matter what the case is, if they have no ability to pay. But then if you could do the paperwork to get that person enrolled in Medicaid, so the ID, doctor bills, birth certificate, things to prove to the state who they are, Medicaid would then retroactively reimburse the hospital for services. And he would charge like 20% of the reimbursement. Which you could have a NICU baby cost $1 million bill, be $1 million bill, right? So if you're getting 20% of that, you make $200,000 just doing paperwork.
Yeah.
He was making so much money, it was crazy. Like he literally was married and bought a big house and moved his girlfriend to the house with his wife and his kids.
The girlfriend lived with the...
That's the kind of money he was making.
Everything, anything with enough money.
In Detroit?
True Detroit play.
I'm saying when you're in Detroit, you make money like that?
Yeah.
And now my household, they ain't gonna ride. But I'm saying like in Detroit, at the time, he literally moved his girlfriend in with his wife. He had palm trees flown in. He was making money. But my whole thing was in the D where it's cold 10 months out of the year. But the whole thing was he had lost it because they had found out that the CEO was in his pocket or vice versa. And so he lost the contract. And so me, ear to the street, okay, boom, I'm gonna go figure out how I'm gonna get the contract. So I went and met with his chief operating officer and persuaded her to come work with me. And then I did some other things, get a contract, and that's how I started my first company.
Can we go back just for a second? Because you were obviously born into the healthcare industry, but your entrepreneurial journey had a lot of stops.
Yeah.
Right. So I know that you had the ice cream truck at FAMU. You did the fish and sandwich. What did you learn from those businesses that said, you know what, this isn't going to work? Because you admittedly said they didn't work, but you learned and said, let me go back to my passion.
Nah, for sure. So ice cream truck, like you said, you know, I was doing that because to my surprise, I mean, how are you in Florida don't have ice cream trucks? In Detroit, it's cold 2 months out of the year, you have ice cream trucks during the summertime. So I had my Tahoe converted to an ice cream truck. I was playing Master P's Ice Cream Man, which was, you know what I mean, the biggest song on the radio at the time.
Fitting.
But you got to have like with ice, you got to have hot ice. And anyway, then my ice cream was melting, and I really didn't like it. Like I enjoyed being the dude who pulled up in the Tahoe with the ice cream man playing, but I didn't like the process of working on the ice cream itself.
Yeah.
Then I ended up starting these sandwich shops, the Fries, Palm Fritz, Fries in the Cone, because I was in Amsterdam, in the coffee shops, drinking a lot of coffee, came out, and I was hungry for whatever reason, and they had these Fries in the Cones. I'm like, I'm about to be the next Ronald McDonald. I'm about to bring this stuff to the United States. I'm about to kill McDonald's. But I came back, and I did it, and I quickly realized, even though I could grow the business, because I could sell, I didn't like coming in, you know, having a machine where I had to cut and peel the fries. It's too much work. And then you have people complain, then the grease gets dirty. It's just, I didn't like the business itself. So even though I had built them, I didn't like it. So they ultimately all failed. Even though I got in the airport, I was 22, I had a restaurant in the airport. I was in the mall, I was on the street side next to Florida State. I didn't love the business, so it wasn't working. And then I got lost in the business too, right? So what can happen if it's not working the way I planned, which be the next Ronald McDonald,
Right.
I started doing different things. I lost my way. So then I added shrimp to the menu, right? Because, you know, black folks love shrimp. I'm like, I'm up late, I'm open late, I need to have fried shrimp. Well, then I was in Florida, so let me do some Caribbean things. So I had some Caribbean food, some rice and beans. So before you know it, I lost my way with the company, with the business, so ultimately failed. But then came back to Detroit, and I came into healthcare because I knew healthcare. I knew it without even knowing that I knew it. You know, like, so the biggest decisions I made in my last company that I sold to Blue Cross, I knew just through osmosis, just living my life as a kid, remembering decisions that my parents made in their healthcare business.
Yeah. So you ended up selling the first business.
Yeah.
Right. But you didn't just take cash, right? So it was like a stock option. And
my first healthcare business.
Yeah.
I got stock options. So it's a funny story. I don't know if you want the whole story, but long story short, this company, I was doing back-end work because I didn't get a primary contract. I was doing back-end. So basically, their primary vendor, if they couldn't get folks enrolled in Medicaid, they gave me the second shot. I was a garbage man. But for me, of course, I got them all approved because that was my opportunity. And through doing so, this big company who just was on this pathway to go public had decided they wanted to come visit me and either do one or two things. Do a strategic partnership with me, where instead of me charging 20% of reimbursement, I charge 8 to 10%, but I would get a bigger volume of work. Or they would buy my company. And so they came to visit me. I was in a shared office space, like WeWork.
Yep.
I just had one office. Well, I had like two offices in there, and they had a shared conference room. And I paid people to act like they worked for me. You know, I paid like $40 a day. I gave them a one pager with, 3 bullet points. This is the name of the company. You know what I'm saying? This is it's one page, one line of what we do. And anyway, so I sold those folks, and they didn't want to act like they worked for me, but I sold the people on buying my company and got stock options. So they made me a senior director. They gave me, which at the time I was paying myself $40,000 a year. My own company, they paid me $200,000 a year. I was 27. And they gave me $1 million in stock.
Yeah, that's what Dane was telling us. He was like, make sure you ask him about that. He started a company with a virtual Regis office and sold the company, da-da-da-da.
I did it twice, though, Rashawn. That was my first time. Second time, I won a $500 million contract. Because I was at work, you know what I'm saying, by the dumpsters on the phone, like sneaking. Yeah, and I did that.
So how did you do
I had
that?
a Regis office space,
So, all
DC.
right, all right, let's get into that situation. So you started the company, but in order for the company to be sold, it had to look like more than what it actually was.
Right.
So that's why you got the Regis office space, which anybody doesn't know Regis office space. Regis is like a shared office.
Hey, earners. Did you know that the black community has $2.7 trillion of spending power? Are you ready to see what you can do when you combine and recirculate our resources to expand the pool of black excellence? I know I'm ready, and that's why we've partnered with Greenwood, the in-demand black-owned digital banking platform. Greenwood's namesake was founded in 1906, built from the brilliance of black dreamers looking to create a self-sufficient community in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, aka Black Wall Street. Today, Greenwood is a digital banking platform with the mission to strengthen the black dollar using the same community reinvestment strategies of the original Greenwood district. And it's powered by a best-in-class mobile app that allows you to bank from anywhere. So, earners, if you're ready to build a new legacy of black economic achievement, go to bankgreenwood.com/EYL and sign up to be a part of the new Greenwood community. That's bankgreenwood.com/EYL. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Head over there now.
What makes I try to do some business in Georgia and to be like a subcontractor, but I quickly learned there's no real money. So here's one thing I'll clarify is my lane has been healthcare. That's really the niche of government contracting, because really that's what I was doing. Once I got on the side in my last company, I was contracting with the government. So there was this company who I was going to be their sub, who was trying to do some work in Georgia, and I quickly realized there was no big money in that. So I want to get into Medicaid managed care because Obamacare just passed, which meant more people on Medicaid, which because of the way I grew up, I knew more folks on Medicaid meant more people in Medicaid managed care.
So let's just break this down. Medicaid is the government program health insurance.
Yes.
For people, low income people.
Yes.
So you get commissions if you sign people up for Medicaid?
Well, no, the way it works is if you actually own the insurance company, which is what my parents had.
That's providing the Medicaid.
Right. And then I got it. So here's what happens. The government has the money and they're responsible for paying all the bills for people on Medicaid. All right. Well, what's happened is you had the providers, the hospitals and doctors and service providers would just bill the government. Overbill them 2 or 3 times for the same service, bill, somebody could be ER level 5, but they ER level 2, which means not that sick, but they'll bill ER level 5, means super sick, they would get more money for it. So they would double bill, triple bill, do too much. And so the government decided in order to manage the spending, they need to put a police mechanism in the middle to police the providers. Mm. And those are the Medicaid managed care insurance companies. So they contract with us and they pay us a health insurance premium per member per month they assign to us. So in DC, my first contract, my first month, they assigned me 30,000 people. They're paying me roughly, $5,000 a year. So they paid me so I was getting like $12 million a month.
$5,000 a person.
Per year.
A person per year.
Yeah. And they assigned me 30,000 people. So you do the math, that's $150 million a year divided by 12, like $12 million a month. First contract. Before that, I have to pay all the hospital bills though. So every time my member goes to the hospital, the doctor, the dentist, gets prescriptions, emergency transportation, non-emergency transportation, I'm paying for everything. And if those bills are greater, and I have my costs, my administrative costs to provide the service, marketing, et cetera. If my costs are greater than what I got paid from the government, I lose money.
Okay.
So I'm at risk. But if they're lower than, I make money.
Okay.
So yeah.
No, so are there things that you can do, obviously, to prevent?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what are some of the things that
I was out cold. I was the coldest with it. So the average company in my industry was doing 1.7% profit margin. So if you round up to 2%, that's 2% on 150 million, it's like $3 million a year, right? Well,
that's the profit.
Right. And there's some advanced accountants that look at all the past utilization patterns. How many times to go to the emergency room? How many times to go inpatient? It means they spend a night in the hospital at least one night. How many folks are homeless? And how many folks have diabetes? How many folks, need a transplant? And they make all these assumptions to say, okay, well, we expect your cost to be X, so therefore your profit can be 2%. But of course, because Troy, you the same way I believe, if somebody gave you, and I got my company up to 200 million in revenue. So if somebody gave you $200 million in revenue,
yeah. By
the way, a lot of companies lose money. Like United was losing money.
Yeah.
Are you gonna make money or lose money?
I'm gonna make money.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure?
It just hit me.
You give me $200 million, I'm about to make some money.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So they was making 2%, I was making 10. And then my 10 was rounding down. So I was making like 20 million a year and I should have made 4 million a year.
How come you was able to make way more higher profit margins than them?
Because big companies are built with mediocre people. Right? So Blue Cross Blue Shield and these big companies, United Healthcare, Centene, they're big. And like every big company, they're just mediocre, right? Because no one really gives a shit because they don't own it. But me, I own 40% of my company. So if I make 20 million, 8 million is coming to Tommy Duncan's pocket. You feel me? If I make 4 million, I'm only getting 800,000. So what I'm gonna do? I'm about to make the 20. How do I do it? I'm going through the data. So I became an actuary in my own mind. So like I said before about like the food business, I didn't like it. I didn't like the process of it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't gonna become a cook or a chef. I didn't like it. But in this business, I love this shit. So I became an accountant to a degree, an advanced accountant called actuary. So I looked at all of my data, identified, okay, well, who's costing me the most money by individual and by category. So I'll give you an example. I identified that anyone who was in my membership had any condition. They could be a type 2 diabetic, they could be on dialysis, whatever the case may be. But if they were also homeless, they cost me 5x more expensive. So no matter what the condition they had, if they were also homeless, I cost 500% more. So what I decided to do is identify all of my members that were homeless and put together programs to get them into housing. Simple thing.
Yeah.
So I had this meeting, I had 40 people there because it was an open meeting, and I kind of lead from the front. I'm a ground up guy, so let's all talk. Everybody gets respect in the floor. And what I quickly realized is that because of that safe environment, 2 women raised hands and said I had actually been homeless in DC and homeless with a kid. So they gave me the real. So I thought I had the bright idea, was wrong. They gave me the real lay of the land. We put together plans in place. We reduced our homelessness by 50%. So out of all the metrics and data in our industry of healthcare, the only metric that we needed to focus on was getting folks that were homeless into housing. It seems simple, right? We did it, cost came down by 50%, and our profitability went up directly.
So that's dope. Let's just go into that for a minute. So just by actually looking at the numbers, you realize that the homeless people was actually costing you a lot more money. So you got to keep them on. So the way to solve it is housing.
That's
which
right.
There are housing programs,
right.
But it's just a matter of most CEOs aren't really interested in community outreach and trying. Right. So you actually going hand in hand and getting these people and saying like, look, we can get you a house, and we can put you in a shelter. Yeah. And that way, not only are you getting them off the street, but you actually increasing your profit revenue as well.
That's why I was like, I get it. Once you said it, I'm like, I get it. You do the programs for the homeless.
That's right.
You create exercise classes.
That's right.
You create nutrition programs. More entry people, less people have to go to get any type of treatment or have to go increase the expenses.
True, 100% right. So we actually built these community centers called outreach centers in the hood. So in the toughest neighborhood in DC, we had 4 of them all throughout the district. And most of these companies, call them corporate, call them whatever you want to call them, they ain't stepping foot in the hood. And their employees aren't. So we end up attracting people that were comfortable being in the hood, and I call it the hood, but when you're around the people that you're serving, you can affect them because you're actually communicating with them. And you get them, you build a trust where they actually pay attention to what you are putting forth. They know the resources, and their behaviors change for the positive. So
that's how you was able to increase just looking at stuff like that.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Studying the analytics. So you went from 1%, well, the average was 1%.
1.7.
And so that's how you got to the 10%.
I was over 10.
Killing them. But
the problem is, and I actually wrote a book trying to change the policy for Medicaid in the country. I sent it to you. It's called The $1 Trillion Medicaid Monster. It addresses single payer, everything you've heard about politically that no one fully understands. It addresses all of it, simplifies it. And I took it to the person that ran Centers for Medicare and Medicaid for the country to change policy. I gave him 3 policies to change, and he told me there's no way he could do it because one of the policies is affected into law through Obamacare. And it'd be too hard to change policy. But what that policy is a mandatory medical loss ratio requirement. What that means is, remember, the government pays us a health insurance premium per member per month. $5,000 per year, break it down per month, $400 per month per person. Mm-hmm. Tracking? Well, let's use a $5,000 per year number. The requirement is that 85% of that money has to be spent on direct costs of care. So hospital, doctor, pharmacy. Then I get 12% left, 13% left to cover my administrative expense and then 2% profit margin. But the mandatory medical loss ratio is the 85%. Well, if you do the things that I was doing, get people who are homeless into housing, reduce costs of care, then you're gonna be less than 85%.
Because I'm thinking like if you did it in DC, this model seems like it could be scalable, right?
No
Like, why
question.
can't we do it Detroit, New York City?
Well, because it's political. It's hard to win the contracts. It's a big game. So let me tell you something else to the entrepreneurs out here. Go to where the opportunity is. I feel like a lot of times what we do as individuals, not just black, but just in general, is we believe whether whoever our God is or our universe is, is all on us, right? So God blesses us and it's just wherever we are. But the truth is the environment has a big impact on your opportunity.
That's a fact.
And I was in Detroit, ain't no money in Detroit. DC is a special place. And a lot of black folks who have been successful come through DC. A lot of them. You look them up. Most of them. Guys who started BET, you go through, you really look at black folks that made it big. Most of them spent time in DC. And the reason is because DC is the only place that has a governor's budget, but is black ran. So you look at any other state in this country, you go look at New York City, who knows what's gonna happen? And to a degree, it may not really matter. You look at Atlanta, Georgia, you go to Detroit, Michigan, you got all these, big cities which have a black mayor. But the mayor budgets are small.
Because the governor.
The governor got the money.
Yeah.
Governors got more money they can actually
Push the
move
buttons, right.
than the president of the United States. Because they are like the biggest CEOs in this country, but no one talks about it. So how many black governors do you know?
None.
Come on, why is that? They control the money. Sorry. They control the money. Governors control the money. Let me tell you, out of the city of Atlanta, because I spent time there, but any city, a big contract would be $1 million. Right? You get a contract with the airport, you got a concession, you make $500,000 a year. It's big. Any contract over $3 million, so $3, $4, $5 million, it'd be construction. But the problem with construction for an entrepreneur is that there's a lot of expenses in construction.
Yeah.
You gotta have equipment, you gotta have 1 million people, you can't make any profit. But the governors control, watch this. The second largest procurement in history of the United States was Florida Medicaid 3 years ago. It was a $120 billion contract. Right now, over the next 3 months, California's putting out their Medicaid contract. Medicaid, what I was doing, it's gonna be a $200 billion contract. $200 billion over 5 years. $200 billion over 5 years. Medicaid, what I was doing. Who controls that? The governor. I mean, you don't have to get a big piece to get a lot of money, but DC is special because DC
Governor's budget.
It's the governor's budget, and the mayor is the governor, and she's a black woman.
That's
and before
because-
her, it was a black man.
So it's the District of Columbia, so it's not a state.
Yeah.
So it's a territory. So
But got the budget,
the mayor is technically the governor in a sense.
and they got the budget.
Is the
They got
budget
the power?
Budget based on population? How do they determine the budget
Yeah.
based on
Big
population?
place. And tax base.
Yeah, okay.
But DC is a beautiful place. It's small with a big tax base, and they got the power. And then the other thing DC did through former mayor for life, Marion Barry, was the first place to institute a real program. And maybe Georgia did it, but DC did it powerfully, where every contract that comes out of DC has to have 30% minority participation. Now, what happens there is a lot of times the black companies will come in and try to do small things, right? Mm-hmm. Unintentionally, but they'll do janitorial service, they'll do marketing,
HVAC,
contract,
stuff like that.
HVAC, they'll do printing, but they ain't no money. I mean, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
What I was doing, I came in as a prime, and I got the prime contract, so I was getting $200 million a year out of DC government. Well, the problem with the companies that like I had is I couldn't find a smaller black business to give a contract to that was worth 30%. They couldn't do the work. They didn't have the infrastructure. They weren't trying to do anything worth the bigger spend. But DC, let me tell you right now, the Medicaid contracts, because they did an expansion, DC right now is probably $3 billion a year. Just a little old DC, $3 billion. Well, of that, 30%, how much is that? Almost $1 billion?
Yeah.
Has to be spent with minorities. But how much you really think is being spent with the minority companies in DC? I can tell you, because we had to do hearings because there wasn't enough to spend. Probably no more than 10 million, not even 10, 5 million.
5 million from $1 billion.
Not even that much. I'm saying it's like
It's just not, the companies
It's not
aren't there.
there.
companies aren't there to do the work. And look, we put game in the system by putting money in a black bank, but that's not really spending money. That's just money sitting. And even that's like small. But anyway, my points are that there's opportunity all over the place, particularly in DC.
Yeah.
And this way to navigate it, the way that I did it, You know, but as an entrepreneur, you should look at your environment, see where you at.
The skill, I mean, navigating through government contracts is obviously a skill. Where did you develop this? Was it watching your parents go through the hospital, or was it something that you learned when you were at a VP at your first company?
On one side, my experience with my parents, you know, having all these employees, you know, all the politicians coming through every day, taught me government contracting. Because that's, a lot of it is a sense of, I won't call it quid pro quo, but some pro quo, right? I mean, there is a fundamental human principle called reciprocity, right? Mm-hmm. You do for me, I do for you. Mm-hmm. But you ain't doing for me, I ain't doing much for you. Mm-hmm. And the reason you need to get my attention is because you want me to prioritize your priority. I got my own priorities. So in order to do that, you got to incentivize me. My experience at Accretive taught me, trained me. And that's the skill set I deployed when I looked at all of my data and identified which one moved the needle, right, as I gave the example with the homeless program, mm-hmm, and executed and put together an operating rhythm to push every day to improve our performance.
Earners, what's going on? Traditional universities are outdated and don't teach you how to become an entrepreneur. They just teach you how to become an employee.
You go to school for 4 years and you leave with nothing but debt. But here at EYL University, our curriculum is much different.
Our university teaches you real-world skills that you can use to gain financial freedom right away. In traditional universities, you learn from professors that have never did what they teach, and they teach you how to become an employee. At our university, we use instructors that are currently successful in a specific field that they teach, and they teach you how to become an entrepreneur.
For a limited time only, you can join EYL University for 25% off of the annual membership. Learn about stocks, credit, real estate, crypto, and more. Go to EYLUniversity.com right now and sign up to become an earner.
Don't wait, don't hesitate. Head over there now.
We had a conversation earlier, Troy, about you're asking me if someone wins the office. It was Rashad. The question was, well, why would they keep raising money?
Yeah.
Well, they keep raising money because they may be borrowing to pay for the TV commercials and they need to pay that money back. The other thing that happens too is they always want to have more money because they can then king make or queen make. So now, let's say the person's mayor or governor, and now they want to handpick city council, right? Mm-hmm. So they want to give that city council member that they want, so they know that they'll vote for whatever their initiatives are. They need to raise money for them. So they'll take the money that they raise for their campaign and then donate it to kingmake to kind of build a powerful position in government so they can make decisions they want to make and help folks that they want to help. Mm-hmm. The other reason is if they lose, they got debt. See, if you win, you can always raise money because now folks want to participate with you, right? The business people. But when you lose, then you may have $100,000 in debt, $1 million in debt, and no one's going to give you any money really because you lost. So they always raise money just in case they lose too. But anyway, so the understanding government relationships and understanding what people want. The other side is training. And Troy, I got my training on how to operate my business at the highest level through my company at Accretive. When I sold my company to Accretive, they taught me how to analyze data, how to synthesize it, how to analyze and identify out of all of the data points and metrics what actually moves the needle the most, and then create an operational rigor to push every day to improve performance.
Yeah, I think that's incredible, right? A lot of times people hear someone sold their company and they took the cash and they walked away and tried to create a new company, whereas you sold the company, stayed on, and learned skills to help you before you created a new company.
That's right.
That's incredible.
And that's why we killed them.
Yeah.
My last company, we killed them. And it benefited me financially. So my last company, based upon the size, so if you just look at the metric of number of members, which is usually how they value managed care companies, we would have sold our company for $40 million. But because we were so profitable, we sold a company for $120 million. And that profitability was directly driven by really the training I received at Accretive to understand the data and then pushing it.
So what was the last company that you sold? Like, what was it? Same type of services provided?
That was insurance.
That was insurance.
That was a Medicaid health plan. That was a Medicaid insurance company.
Trusted, right?
Trusted, yeah.
So you was providing the insurance for the Medicaid.
Yeah. So people who have Medicaid, they have an insurance company, and I was one of the providers.
This is interesting. It's something that I've never even heard of, speaking of Medicare. You actually bought a healthcare plan from Michigan Tenet in 2016?
Yeah, Tenet's largest for-profit health care system in the country. So here's how it goes. It's kind of a mix of both, right? So one, there was a person who used to be a Supreme Court justice in Michigan, and were very close with my parents. When I started my entrepreneurial journey, remember my parents, the other thing about government business is when you're on the positive side with people like you, it's extraordinarily beneficial. But then something can happen where you get on the wrong side of politics. And so my parents got on the wrong side and lost everything. But then I was building my own. This person became a good friend of mine, kind of like a mentor to a degree. And it just so happened he ended up becoming the CEO of one of the Tenet hospitals in Detroit. And he told me that from corporate, they had made a decision to sell their Medicaid health plan assets. And because of that relationship, he told me about it. And then I contacted a guy who I made chairman of my board. He's a very good friend of mine. I contacted, so my guy who was running the hospital told me. I contacted my guy who is in that world of high-powered executives in healthcare, which none of them are black. He talked to them, and they confirmed, yes, we are looking to sell the asset. And so, within a few months, they sold it to us.
What's the type of tag on that? Because I know you later sold it to Henry Ford.
We bought it for, we had to put in, it's called risk-based capital. I think all in, we probably put in like $13 million.
Okay.
And
then 3 years later,
we sold it for 22 and a half. Yeah, but that was a crazy story. But here's the real story. That ain't the story how much money we made. The real story, Troy, is that we bought it and they gave us these financials which showed it was making $6 million a year in profit, $500,000 a month, $500,000 a month, $500,000 a month. The first month I owned it, we lost $1 million.
Oh.
You dig? So he sold me an asset with all the financials. It's a big publicly traded company, right? One that you would trust. $500,000 a month they make it, but somehow my first month I lose $1 million. Second month I lose another $1 million. Third month I lose another $1 million. So now what's happening? My private equity partners are coming to take my company over from me. I got stories for days. They come to take it from me because they said now we got to put more money in the company. Of course, Tom, you can't put the money up, so we got to put the money up. We're going to dilute you down and take your equity, put the money up, and it's becoming hostile because we have our investors whose money in this thing. We got to do what we have to do to retain as much value as we can. So now they start showing up in my office every day, taking over my finance. So put my CFO out the way, took over his office. They come in every day. So I'm like, all right, now I got to fix the problem. So fix the problem, how do I do it? Make all my vendors renegotiate their rates with me, cut everything in half, or I'm suing y'all and I'm claiming fraud and everything. So now I call the state of Michigan. So here's what thing, no matter how big the company is, in healthcare, there's one thing that can destroy a company. It's called compliance. So if government believes that a company is not being compliant, they could tank the whole company. And so I proactively called the state of Michigan's insurance bureau, even though I presented as if they called me. They didn't. I called them, and I was threatening, well, listen, if the insurance bureau approved them, so what happens is when you're an insurance company, you make a profit. You can't really take your profits out every year. You just retain them, and then when you sell your company, then you get all your money. So when they sold the company, we gave them $13 million. They took like $10 million out the company that they had in retained earnings. So then I contacted the insurance bureau, and I threatened. I'll tell you a funny story too. Let me tell you the story. So I called the insurance bureau. Say, no, I'm on record calling them to have a meeting. Been in healthcare forever. So we go there, and I got my private equity partners, right? And they talking all this shit to me. They trying to take my company from me. Dudes resigned from the board so they can sue me. So I knew that. Dude resigned from the board, that means they're about to sue me. So they can't sue me being on the board because it's conflict of interest. So I'm like, all right, this is a Jewish guy. They about to sue me. And I got all these problems. They taking over my company. Anyway, so we go, and I got to get my money back. And if I get my money back and I renegotiate my vendor contracts, I can save everything. So we get to Dallas, and all these guys, people come talk all this stuff to me. We get there, and they quiet, scared to talk. But here's the thing. So I threatened the dude. I said, yeah, y'all took that money out when you sold the company to me. And, I got to meet with the insurance bureau. They want to meet with me about what happened because they see our financials have deteriorated. So I don't know, but that's a problem. So the dude, he said, they had this team talking. And I come back, I said, I'm in the insurance bureau. And y'all took that money out. I don't know what they want to talk about. He kind of ignored it again. I said it the third time. I'm sorry. He said, God damn it, Duncan, if you threaten me one more time. And I looked at him. I looked out the window. I said, all right, I won't say it again. I just want to make sure you heard me. Came back, I promise you, a day later, and they agreed to give us our money back. Got my money back. And still renegotiated my contracts with my providers who I had to pay, my vendors. Yeah. So then now, not only did I get my money back, now my costs were lower going forward. So then I'm making money. I probably made another $20 million on my, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So then I got my PE partners off of me and saved my company, ended up being more profitable. And then the company still wasn't making money and it wasn't working. So I was able to get Henry Ford Health System, which is the largest health system in Detroit, to buy my company. And I made a profit. So on something that was losing $1 million a month, that could have tanked everything. DC could have tanked everything. Yeah. I ended up selling for $120 million. We made profits all over the place.
And then you want to go ahead.
So yeah, I don't want to just breeze over the $120 million you sold the company for. So, all right. So what was the process of you selling that? Like, when was you saying, okay, this is the time to start actively looking for somebody to buy it, or did they approach you? And talk about that, like how you actually value the EBITDA and all of that stuff, like how you value the selling of a company. Because a lot of times people just hear like, I sold the company, but they don't actually know like the details that go into selling a company.
Yeah, Rashad. So, okay, first, in our industry, because I got so many stories I could tell you, which would be fun, but in our industry, there is a framework for how you value our companies, right? And it's EBITDA, roughly 8 times EBITDA, right? So you could value it that way, or as I told you before, you value it on the total number of membership. So call it like $1 million of members. Yeah, 40,000 members, not $1 million, but it'd be like $40 million, right? Or you could do it by EBITDA. So, but what happened with us is I didn't want to sell my company. I wanted to keep it and keep growing it. The problem I ran into is even though we were the highest performer on every metric, we were the most profitable, every metric about getting people healthier, we were the best at it, I couldn't win other states. Because what I tell you, we had no black governors. Mm-hmm. And you had to have a black governor to push to win the contract, and we didn't have it. And my PE partners, I didn't want to be diluted, so I don't want them putting up too much money, and then I get diluted down, so I'm owning 5-10% of the company where I built it from scratch. At the time I was owning 40, I want to keep my 40. So I had all these different factors. So, but then what happened, as I shared with you, Rashad. So anyway, so my PE firm, when they bought in, so I started the company without private equity. I had a partner of mine who I met out here in LA, a good friend of mine, who arranged to put up the first couple $1 million. And then I ended up having him bought out because relationship dynamics got difficult to manage through. So got him bought out, and when we got bought out, the company was worth $25 million total. So PE came in at $25 million, but remember I sold was $120 million. But when they came in 3 years earlier, their whole thing is you make a profit, you create value, then you sell it, and you have this, this gain. So they had been looking to sell the company, but I kept wanting to stay in the game because to me, shit, if I'm worth $100-some million now and we're small, if I get bigger, we're worth more, $1 billion, $2 billion. I mean, I can keep going. But one thing that I think was a mistake that I made is I started making so much money that I got loose and I was just starting to spend too much. So I was sharing with Rashad earlier, I did amongst many things. I had this big party in New York City where, but I told him I also had Tretch, I had Naughty by Nature, I had
at your Christmas party.
Christmas party, I had Genuine, I danced with Genuine, doing the moves and shit. I mean, we had Freddie Jackson, you call it, I had everybody showing up. I was like reinvigorating careers. Real talk.
The first verses.
yeah, real talk. But I'm gonna tell you what happened. So when you're in healthcare and government, there's always these fundraisers, there's always small not-for-profits trying to raise money. And it's like this important thing. And all the politicians show up. So I'm at this Christmas dinner, and there's one woman who's like CEO of some small not-for-profit organization in healthcare. She comes up to me. She says, yeah, Tom, I hear you making all this money. You're doing real well, huh? And when she made that comment, I knew I was in trouble.
It was not that coming knocking.
It was just like, remember American Gangster?
Yeah.
When my man said
put the mink on.
Put the mink on and threw it in the fireplace. And I'm like, damn. The word done got out. I'm in trouble.
It's the pink Cadillac and Goodfellas.
Pink Cadillac, Goodfellas.
Don't take that shit back.
Yeah. It was. I bought a Bentley. When I got to DC, I had a red 911 because of my first company, but I never drove it and I sold it because I had to be low key. But then you start making so much money, you just can't help yourself. I bought a Bentley. I'm driving like this and shit. Like real talk, my hat down, sunglasses on, driving through the city. And DC is small. But I couldn't, you can't control yourself. You cannot control yourself. It wasn't me. It was a situation. It was a situation itself.
Impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible. That's why every movie the same shit happen. No matter how much advice you get, you can't do it. So, but here's a real life story. So, right, the pink Cadillac, the chinchilla. When I was growing up, it's about the time we lost everything, and I came back home to try to save it. My stepfather had just sold a piece of property, which was attached to the hospital, for $2 million. And he was running around with his $2 million check, and he was showing it off. And it was one moment he was in a casino in Detroit, and it was this dude, I don't mention his name, who my stepfather was bragging to, y'all think y'all hurting me because he was going to bad side of politics. I just got $2 million. He's showing his $2 million check. And I truly believe, and he'll tell you, that was the start of the full collapse, right? He could maybe fix it, but after that, it was a wrap. Because this dude controlled the hospital, he was general counsel for a hospital, and they just started suing the HMO. So long story short, I knew at that moment it was a wrap for me. So therefore, I needed to sell the company to extract as much value as I can before I end up losing everything. And the thing about government contracts, in any contract business, is it has its positives, its pros, it has its cons. Now, the positives contract business is that once you have a contract, you got revenue flowing, right? Boom, revenue flowing. The downside is when you lose your contract, ain't no more revenue flowing, right? So I went from getting $200 million a year coming through to now, if I don't have nothing, I lose my contract, I have zero. So I'm not in a situation where I could go from—
Very risky.
It's all risk, it's all or nothing. It's literally all or nothing, right? Now, if you're in retail business, what I call is like a restaurant, or you're selling something, or whatever you're doing, and you have customers buying your product and service, they don't just cut you off. You have a real business, right? But in contract, you can lose everything. The problem with the retail is you got to build a big business. I start off, I got $200 million a year revenue, damn near. I mean, it's
big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
You got to build, but then when you get it, you're not as much at risk. Contract, you're at full risk. My partners were putting pressure on me to sell it, and I'm like, all right, I need to sell this company before I end up with nothing.
Yeah. So you sold January 2020.
Yeah.
And then you announced 3 weeks later Jetdoc, which is where you're at now.
1 week later.
One week later.
But I want to just go back to this quickly. So this is very important for people, especially black entrepreneurs, because a lot of times I feel like it's a gift and a curse, but we have a deep emotional attachment to our business. And people always criticize, not always, but a lot of times they criticize people. It's like, well, we can never really grow as a community if we keep selling our businesses, But when you have to understand that there's no emotional attachment to business. You have to look at it from a very rational standpoint. And it's like you can sell a business and then scale to another business as well. So once you saw that A, they was going to come at you because your lifestyle, and then B, just the risk, you just realized you did a calculation in your head.
Yep.
And said it's time to go.
That's right. Exactly right. And because of the way I grew up, and again, my mother had a 12-karat diamond ring that she gave away for practically nothing, and all the furs and the cars and the house and everything, because they were trying to keep that business open. That clearly was closing. Gave away everything, trying to keep it open. I realized that emotional attachment was more of a curse than a blessing.
Did you reach out to Blue Cross Blue Shield, or did they reach out to you to sell it? Like when it was time to sell?
So they reached out to me. They reached out, and then they were trying to get rid of me. So then the district did this thing where they did another procurement, a new contract. So I just won a 5-year contract. Like 8 months later, they say, no, we're going to do it again. We're going to do another contract. So now you have to go through the process of winning a contract again. And I just won. Mm-hmm. So I thought I was set for 5 years. I mean, I can try to grow or whatever. But then 8 months later, we're going to do another procurement. After they cut my rates twice. Remember, I was making so much money. So they cut my rates twice, only me, and then they did this new procurement, which to me was a message. They kicking me out. It's a wrap. So, but all love out of DC. Blue Cross connected with me, said they wanted to be in the Medicaid space, and the company they bought didn't win the contract. But instead, they were encouraged and I negotiated a good deal. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sell that, and then Jet. That's where you're going, right?
Yeah. So I was saying, and as you see the walls closing in, you're already drawing up the vision for the next thing. Yeah. So talk about that process. I know it's closing in, but here comes the next thing, which is Jetdoc, which you announced a week after you sell.
Yeah. So I didn't I didn't want to sell my company, and I felt like I was being forced out, and not just in DC, but I felt like I'm the smartest person in healthcare, and I wrote a book to prove it. I really am. No one knows it better than I do because no one's been a founder CEO like I have. So it's one thing you know something because you work for somebody. It's another thing like what y'all doing. You know it. You know what I'm saying? It's different. Yeah. So I knew it. I'm smart. I grew up in it. So I'm second generation. I mean, and when my mother and my stepfather started in the business, they were guinea pigging this concept of Medicaid managed care. And of course they started in the black communities because that's where they guinea pig. But because of that, my parents had the first experience with it. So like no one knows the game better than I do. So I felt like I was being put on the sideline of the industry, right? And I was mad about it. And so even though I knew I was about to make this money, I was pissed. And so I started another company. And my plan was to launch this next company a week later and then, shock the world with that. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I launched it. I launched Jetdoc February 1st of 2020 with this concept of telehealth. Because I knew that's where the game was going pre-pandemic because I was looking through I'm looking through all my claims. Right. Oh, I got a lot of claims, which are little claims, which can be done over telephone versus somebody having to park the car, go into the office, see a doctor for a Zithromac, a Z-Pack. They can do it on the phone, boom, 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 and the doctor's not a big risk because it's a Z-Pack.
A Z-Pack.
It's easy, right? So I knew that's where, when I looked at my claims, I paid over 1 million claims, boom, this is where healthcare is going. I launched it February 1st on my own technology, building it myself, but then pandemic hits like March 15th, and I go from being early to late. Because now my tech, I'm a month into building my tech. My tech wasn't ready until September. Yeah. And I was late, and then I thought, okay, well, I'm still good, so I'm self-financing it because I want partners because I had PE partners last time, private equity.
Self-finance, don't let that go over your head, yeah.
Well, sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's not the great idea, it depends. Yeah. But I wanted full control of this. I thought this was going to be like a grand slam. Yeah. I self-financed it, and then I go out here to market, like boom, about to kill them. It was right before Labor Day last year. I'm about to kill them. I'm about to give away, free doctor visits. But because I had Stripe on the app, I had to charge at least $1. So I'm going to do dollar doctor visits. And the next morning I wake up, I didn't have that many, people on my app. Why not? I'm spending money on advertising. And I look at all the comments. They think they're, not real doctors, the Dr. Pepper, voodoo doctors, Dr. Dre, whatever. Dr. Day, Dr. Dre. It wasn't real. And so people didn't assess value to what I was trying to sell. And really is an amazing value proposition. Actually included discount pharmacy where anyone can go to any pharmacy in the country, get 85% of the cost of medication. It's unheard of. But because I wasn't getting the traction I expected to get, I decided to do celebrity route like everybody else and go influencer. I got with Rick Ross, and then we launched this big thing earlier this year. And again, I actually kind of got it working. My number is 100 people per day. If I get 100 people a day sign up for Jetdoc, it was booming, the subscription model. The problem is I got like 50 people a day. Actually, that wasn't a problem. 50 people a day would have been okay. The problem is that I spent $400,000 that month in advertising. I ain't spent $400,000 a month for those 50 people a day. I just can't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can't justify it.
Nah, I ain't doing that. So, but that was my problem.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then I had to make another pivot. Business people do if you're gonna be in business. So I pivoted. My pivot was, I'm gonna go back. Remember the guy I told you who I made chairman of my board? Who's at the highest level of healthcare in this country, probably top 10 most powerful people in healthcare in this country, by far. Used to run CMS. He's a friend of mine. I hit him about what I'm doing. They gave me a recurring license contract, which is valuable when you're in the tech business. So back to valuation. Service business in healthcare 8 to 10x EBITDA, which is pre-tax profit.
EBITDA, you know what the EBITDA stands for?
Yeah, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization.
Okay.
EBITDA. So pre-tax profit, 8 to 10x is roughly where you're going to end up. Services, but if you're on tech,
It's like 22 or something like that,
ooh,
right?
baby.
Yeah, John Henry
John Henry was
about
talking
it.
about
Ooh,
that.
baby. And that's why I want to get a tech. That's why I
Yeah.
did the tech. So they're going to give me $1 million a year in recurring revenue. So called times 20, that's $22 million. I'm worth $22 million off the top. I actually got a valuation of $17 million.
And that is, I'm glad you said that. So that is how you value a company. It's like the money that you're making. I'm trying to break this down as easy for people to understand as possible. The money that you make after all the expenses and all of that is done every single year. And then you have multiples. So depending on what industry you're in, that will determine your multiple. So you were saying in healthcare, it's multiples of 8. But in tech, it's like in 20 plus.
20 plus. And here's another thing about tech. Tech will give you a multiplier of top line revenue. Remember, I'm talking about EBITDA is after expenses and taxes. I mean, it's after expenses.
That's net.
It's net.
Tech is gross.
Gross. So you're doing $1 million a year, you getting 10, 15, that's 15 million.
15, yeah.
You get a couple contracts, now you're 40 million. I mean, and you're just doing tech. So
Why is that? Because tech is just so explosive and it's just
because it's
growth
scalable.
is so scalable.
Yeah, because if it works here, you can work anywhere. And it's not, once you build a tech and it has an application, what it costs to scale it is minimal. But services, you get in more people, you have more infrastructure, more blah, blah, blah. So tech is a sexy place to be. So the dude connects me with the company, and then they end up investing, giving me an anchor contract. And so now we're actually at the close stages of winning, appears to be winning a statewide contract to provide telehealth services. And we have another company we're looking to do business with, a few more.
And so Teledoc, so what's the revenue, since you said you started with like $1, how much is it now? I mean,
Well, we still got,
I'll say Jetdoc.
Yeah.
That's the competition.
Well, yeah.
We'll
I was
get
going
to
to ask him about that.
Yeah.
So Jetdoc, you started with $1. How much is it now?
So it doesn't matter, really, because now it's $20 a month, or $10 a month for unlimited, but it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but it's not my priority. That's direct to consumer. So people in Georgia and Florida can still call Jetdoc, see a doctor, get a discount medication, boom, it's all easy. You pay like $20 a visit. But what I've transitioned into is business to business. So that's when I was sharing with Troy earlier. There's an opportunity where, I'm going to address homelessness because it's a major problem, which means a major opportunity. What we found, again, through my math, when I did it in DC, is the average person spends 5x more expensive if they're also homeless. The average expense per year is about $20,000 a year. So somebody's homeless, on average, they cost us $20,000 a year. That's the entire Medicaid, managed care industry. Well, so some folks that are homeless, it costs $20,000 a year. Remember, you only get paid $5,000 a year. So each person, you're losing $15,000. But then you have other people who don't see the doctor at all. You're still getting paid $5,000 a year. So, you get paying out zero, but you're getting $5,000. So kind of, to a degree, not always averages way out, but it gets close to it. And that's where the 2% profit margin comes from, and you shake all that out. But homelessness is a big problem. It's the biggest impactor on the healthcare industry and no one really talks about. So, and we've had homeless people that were using the emergency room 15, 20, 30 times a month, right? Knowing what to say to be admitted inpatient. Meaning inpatient means they spend the night in the hospital at least one night. So if somebody wants to get a meal, they want to just stay in the hospital, or for whatever reason, they want to get some more medications. Maybe because they need them, maybe because they want to sell them, who knows? They know what to say to get it, and then the insurance companies are paying the bill.
Or it's just cold down there.
It's cold, whatever, right? But it costs money. If somebody goes inpatient, baby, it costs us $15,000.
And you can't turn somebody down.
No. So it costs $15,000, right? Well, if they stay on average, which is 5 nights, I'm paying $3,000 a night. Back, they could be staying with me at the Plaza Hotel in the penthouse suite.
Yeah.
That's what I'm paying. So the opportunity is getting folks that are homeless into housing. And there's a big opportunity. I was giving you some quick math, Troy.
Yeah.
In Oakland, California, we're talking to a big company. Let's say they have 10,000 members, $20,000 a year. That means they're spending $200 million a year on homeless members, on healthcare for their homeless, $200 million a year. I proved it in DC. I cut my homeless members in half, which is 50%. And the cost came down accordingly. So if I took a $200 million baseline and I cut it in half, that means $100 million in savings. If I got half of that, I made $50 million, and they made 50. They saved 50 for giving me the contract. It's a lot of money.
So that's the revenue model. It's not really the consumer. It's more
Business to
business
business.
and government contracts too.
That's government or business to business. So another company like the one that I had, I can go contract with them and say, I know how to save money. I was doing 10%, 12% profit margins. You trying to do 2, I can help you.
So that is a formula for Oakland. We know homelessness is a huge problem in LA as well.
Yeah.
Can that also be replicated here?
100%. The thing is, I'm friends with the CEO of a big health plan in Oakland.
In Oakland, okay.
So the relationships, right?
Relationships.
But once you pilot anything anywhere and it's successful, then
You can do anything.
100%.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of virtual doctor visits, Teledoc is a well-known company who's a publicly traded company, but people are still a little leery about this. So you have a virtual doctor visit. Because I've never done this before. Can you kind of explain to me what is a virtual doctor visit? Because I'm assuming that it's limitations involved. Like you can only see somebody. You can't like hit the elbow and
Bang the knee.
check their cough and all that. So like, how does that work? And do you think that this is something that will be the normal moving forward?
I do. In the current state of technology and its limitations, most telehealth visits are, you have flu symptoms, or maybe you think you may have COVID symptoms, or you got a headache, you need some strong Advil, or something that you don't need to see a doctor. You know it, and the doctor knows it. You don't need to see them in person. And so you download the app, and you basically are like a Zoom call, a FaceTime with the doctor, and you talk to them about your symptoms, and they're going to prescribe your medication. And then in Jetdoc, then the doctor will automatically send the script to wherever pharmacy you feel is most convenient for you. You go pick it up, you get 85% off the cost of medication. The discount card is embedded in the app. Where healthcare is going is more sophisticated technology, which we're on the forefront of that with this contract we have, I was just sharing with you, where we're including with our app integrated remote patient monitoring. So folks that are diabetic need glucometers to measure the blood in their sugar, the sugar in their blood. And so we're integrating like a pulse oximeter to see what their heartbeat is. But we're integrating these into our app, so it's fully integrated. So now you can have devices that have advanced photography capabilities. They can actually see more clear than your iPhone what's going on. So you can actually use devices or smart scales to get more information. So you're actually replicating an in-person visit without being in person. Yeah. So that technology is on the way, and we're in the forefront of it. We're building this integrated application with Jetdoc to have 20 remote patient monitoring devices fully integrated to the system. So
pre-COVID in the telehealth space, there was an projected average about 800,000 visits, 800,000 visits a month. Obviously, post-COVID, that number has run to
over
a billion visits. So that means there's a lot of people in the space. Yeah. So what's Jetdoc's plan to separate it? Because I know Shadi mentioned a company has competition. How do you separate yourselves from the rest of the competition?
The reality is I got to figure out what I want to do. So, there's so much room. First of all, to answer your question, there's a lot of room. Mm-hmm. There's room galore. And there's room galore direct to consumer. There's so many different pockets of opportunity. So whether you focus on mental health, you focus on this niche over here. There's a tele company that's been very successful doing transgender care. So doctors transgender or transgender friendly or what have you. And all the members are transgender because they have their own healthcare issues, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's very focused. So what's happening now is the tele companies are trying to figure out what the niche is, right? STDs is a big niche. So figure out what the niche is. There's a lot of opportunity for niching direct to consumer, but also when you do direct to business, how many businesses are there? There's a trillion of them. So there's always things you can try, do something new and different, which means opportunity to grow B2B is pretty massive as well. But when I was saying I got to figure out what I want to do is, how far do I want to take it? If you asked me a year ago, 2 years ago, I'll tell you I'm going to take it all the way. Publicly traded, own it, control it, make it a legacy business. Am I there right now? I don't know. I'm still thinking about that. So do I just want to create value and then sell it and have another hit and maybe get into TV?
Prince of Detroit.
Out with Dame Dash, the light, baby. But
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But that's the decision entrepreneurs have to make is, where their passion lies and is it still burning?
Let me ask you this before we wrap. Some general questions. You say you wrote the book, Medicare, Medicaid. We always hear these issues that, is so flawed. And you said, can you give us one of the solutions that you have in the book, or something that, why is it so flawed, and what are some, like, at least one thing that you think can be done to fix it?
You'll understand it. It's get rid of mandatory medical loss ratio requirements. So I shared with you earlier, out of $100 we receive in revenue, we are required by law to spend $85 out of 100, so 85% on the direct cost of care: hospital, doctor, pharmacy, dental, transportation, etc. Well, if you spend 85% of your dollar every year, medical cost inflation is 2%. It's been 2% forever, which means next year you're going to be spending your total cost. So the government's going to pay the total cost, the taxpayers are paying it. So 85, it's like compound interest. What was 85% is now 85.2%, right? And then the next year is 85.2 plus another 2%. So not 85.2, because 2% of 85 is greater than that, right? It's like 1.7. So now it goes up to 87%. So every year, the cost of healthcare keeps going up because of inflation. And you're requiring folks to spend that money. You dig what I'm saying? Yeah. So every year the cost of healthcare goes up. That's why it's crazy. What you want to do is get rid of mandatory medical loss ratio requirements and then incentivize companies to reduce the total cost of care for their membership. And by doing that, what should be the case is if they reduce their costs, they actually get more contracts with governments to do more business. That's usually how it works, like Walmart. Lower the cost, the more business you get. But the way government has set it is they have these mandatory medical loss ratio requirements, which means you have to spend 85% of your money. And if you spend less than that, it's not legal. Well, the reason they do that, the government has done that, is what they have been afraid of are insurance companies skimping on care for the purposes of retaining it as profit. So let's say Troy needs to go, get some imaging done. He has some heart palpitation or something. He wants to get checked out. They're worried that me as an insurance company, let's say I'm Blue Cross Blue Shield and he's my member, I say, no, Troy, you can't go get this imaging service because it's not a covered benefit, or I just don't want you to do it because it's going to cost me $1,000 a year insurer. So to protect against that, to protect the people, they make these mandatory medical loss ratio requirements. But the truth is, in healthcare, because if somebody goes to the emergency room, by law, the hospital has to see the person, and by law, I got to pay the bill, then the percent of spending that can really be affected by me trying to skip on services is like less than 10%. So it's really like 7%. So if I can only affect 7%, why are you forcing the system to overspend on the other 93%? You dig what I'm saying? What should be the case, like anything in capitalism, is if I can get my costs lower, I should be able to get more business. I should be incentivized to get my costs down. And the only way to really get costs down in healthcare is get people healthier. It's what I explained to you on the homeless issue. I cut my costs in half because I got half my people housing. Mm-hmm. So I was sitting down at 65% medical loss ratio, which the government thought was a bad thing, which is why they forced me to get out of the industry, where 65% is a good thing, because guess what happens? If I'm at 65 and the system is set to where I get more business because I'm a lower cost provider than my other competitors, then guess what? The big companies that are in health insurance will now actually compete to get their costs lower. So if I had an impact doing things with homelessness and all this other stuff I did, reducing, I had thousands of people who I stopped from being hooked to dialysis for the rest of their life. I call it dialysis row. If somebody has an A1C, which is basically measuring the sugar in someone's blood, if it's 5.5 or greater, that means they're diabetic. So if it's less than 5.5, they're pre-diabetic. No, actually less than 7. Yeah, less than 7. Less than 7. But I had people, but then let's say they have A1C 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That means any day they could require dialysis. And that's a bad thing, because now they dialysis every day for the rest of their life until they get a transplant or they die. I had thousands of people, because I looked at my data, who had A1Cs that were over 7, who have A1Cs that were growing over a period of time, right? They had 7.5, now they had a 9. I better focus on these people, get them into care, get them a glucometer that gives me real-time notification when it spikes, and then my staff is going to reach out to them, what do you have for lunch? Oh, you think it's healthy to eat food all the time. Guess what? Not so much. what are you doing in changing behaviors, right?
Yeah, fruit, right?
Yeah, a lot of times fruit. People
But
think fruit is.
it breaks down in your body as sugar.
That's right.
Yeah.
Glucose.
Oh, no question. So people think they're doing something healthy, but it's killing. But listen. People, watch this. Thousands of people, my aunt included, and many people y'all know included. But my aunt was on rheumatoid arthritis since last 30, 40 years. Well, to treat rheumatoid arthritis is medications, and most of them attack the kidney, right? So over time, it'll deteriorate the kidney, and before you know it, they need dialysis. But not because of lifestyle or eating habits, it's just because they're on a medication to treat something, and instead it burns the kidney up, and now she's on dialysis. We had thousands of people that we identified through medication they were on, how long they were on it. They had A1Cs that were rising, that we moved A1C from being in the hotbed, the hotland of any day now you could be on dialysis row, to being pre-diabetic. Lifestyle, behavior changes. Thousands of people, because I cared. Diet. Next, diet. Most of it's diet. And medication compliance. A lot of people don't take the medication. Why? Sometimes it makes them shit. Or dialysis. Or not dialysis, diarrhea. Right, so you have side effects. Man, so much healthcare can be fixed. But here's my real point. My point is we identified all these triggers and we did something about it. And through doing something about it, we gave people longer life, healthier life. We avoided folks on dialysis and all those impacts. But not only that, we save a lot of money in the process. Because when somebody is on dialysis, guess what it costs us every year? $85,000. When you include dialysis and them going to the emergency room a couple of times to be an inpatient, $85,000 a year. But I'm only getting paid $5,000, which means I'm losing $80,000 per person on dialysis. So what did I do? I'm getting out in front. Save that damn homeless.
Preventive measures, yeah.
But what happens there? I save money and people have better, healthier lives, right? But that's little old Tommy Duncan, because Tommy Duncan was also, I care about people, and the profit goes in my own pocketbook. So I'm doing these things which are making a big difference. The big companies aren't doing them. But if they actually incentivize, if you get your costs lower, which you can only do it through doing things I just shared with you, then the big companies would actually do what I'm doing, and they would do it way better because they have all the resources in the world. But right now they have no incentive to do it. Instead, the incentive is just keep things status quo, which is why healthcare outcomes are status quo, and the cost of the system keeps going up every year. And the governor and the governments don't do shit.
So how do we change it? Political action?
Political action, man. You just got to get political action, man. You got to get black governor. That's my headline. Get a black governor. That's what you need to do.
When's the last black governor in America?
It was in Virginia.
New York, the last one.
Guy.
But that wasn't real though.
Yeah.
He was the governor. No disrespect to Patterson, but he wasn't elected.
No, he wasn't elected, but he served as.
And then he got
2 years.
kicked. Then he got
him out of there.
But
you got to have somebody coming in,
elected,
eyes wide open. You know what they're doing.
Virginia, that was the last elected black governor.
Yeah, there's a guy named I can't remember his name. But you need somebody really coming in, with a plan. They know what they're doing. They got a squad. They have relationships now.
But even with the governor, like even if it's a black governor, it's like I feel like, and you know better than me, obviously, but this billions of dollars that's made in people being sick. Like you might have been losing money, but there's other companies and other people that's actually making money from people being sick.
Yeah, treatment, medicine.
Hospitals. Yeah, but it's okay.
Pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, it's okay.
So the lobby, it might be too strong to push it, no matter who's the president or the governor or.
I agree with that, but somebody has to have audacity, and eliminating medical loss ratio actually can be viewed as a positive thing, even for the biotech companies, because then they would start to design things and market to the provider groups, insurance companies, what can actually keep people healthier and out the hospital. This medication is better or different for this reason. The government has taken the stance, because of what I shared earlier, that if you do not police the insurance companies from skimping on care, they will skimp on care, and that will be to the detriment of the public. And what I'm sharing with you is the way the system is designed from the inside, the only skimping you could do is no more than 7% of total spending. So you're sacrificing 93% because of the 7%, which happens all the time.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Prince of Detroit has spoken.
Another classic. I appreciate you, brother. So what do the people need to tap in? What can you say your information, all of the information that you have about Jetdoc, Instagram, website, all of that stuff?
I'll do it all, but before I do, I just want to make the comment. Any entrepreneurs out there, do your research on your business. You know, research the industry. What are the success rates? What are the failure rates? And failure rates are okay, but why do they fail? You know, calculate your risk. Don't just jump out there. Calculate it. You know, particularly if you're an adult, meaning you have, you know, responsibilities, and you just can't just quit your job. I know so many people just quit their job, think they're going to open a business, then the business doesn't work. Then they don't have a job or a business. You know, all of my businesses I started, I had something already going, right? I had this going, I started mine, so I calculated my risk. Yeah, I could lose it all. I could lose a lot, but I ain't going to lose it all. At the time I started my DC business, I had a son. I was married with a son, and my wife was pregnant, right? So I did these things, again, I calculated my risk. So do your research. Understand your industry. Understand what is the best upside. Are you going into a lifestyle business, meaning you just want to be profitable and you make $1 million a year, and you know, if that's the highest upside, that's a great lifestyle, but no, that's what you get into. Or you're trying to do a value creation business. Do what I did. You create something that may take a little more time. Maybe it goes faster because of the technology, but guess what? Now you sell it for $100 million or $1 billion, and then you actually get a lump sum of money. And I'm gonna tell you this, when you get a lump sum of money, it's a beautiful thing. You can make $5 million a year. That sounds good, right? You can make $10 million a year, but then you got half the taxes, and then you got the lifestyle, you got a big house, you living out here, you got 1,000 cars, you know? You spending your money. But you get that lump sum, that big check, and that money be working for you. You ain't got to work. That money working. You dig what I'm saying? Like, my money works. I ain't gotta do SHIT, my money be working. In the stock market, in this, it's just working on its own. And that's where I decided I wanted to be, and that's where I'm at. But really know what you're trying to get into and what you're trying to get out of it. You know, do your research, do your homework. When I won a contract in DC, it's because I did, in addition to all the things I talked about, right? I did the political stuff, the government contracts to people, and all that kind of smooth stuff. But also, I put together the best plan for the district. Right, I understood where the power was. It was in DC. I understood the program for CBE, for the minority business in DC. I understood all the healthcare. I read every article about healthcare in DC. DC is broken up by ward. There are 8 wards, like boroughs, probably New York. I understood the health issues of each borough in New York, and I put together a plan for it. And so, anyway, I just really advise people to do their homework. You know, calculate risk, do your homework, but take risks, right? My shirt says what? High risk. I'm a high risk, high reward guy, you know? But, you know, if you want more, you gotta do more. That being said, Tommy2Duncan on IG, at Tommy2Duncan, Jetdoc, my Jetdoc on IG, jetdoc.com. The Prince of Detroit film, go check that out. Prince of Detroit film, that's what I'm doing, I'm having fun with that. And I got other things popping. But what I love to do more than anything, Rashad and Troy, is talk about entrepreneurship to help people be successful. I feel like that's what's missing in our community is real mentorship on kind of ropes to skip, the ropes to know, and I feel like y'all are doing it. And so I appreciate you having me on the show to do my little part.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
I'm glad we was able to connect. Definitely look forward to, you know, establishing a stronger relationship. Tons and tons of information, and it's one of these things where we don't know a lot about, you know, these type of informational topics when it comes to healthcare. And just to have somebody, you know, that we can relate to, that's kind of been the formula for our success, is just bring people on that people can relate to and break down very complex situations and make them understandable. And that's what you did. So thank you for joining us, brother.
Can I do one more thing?
For sure.
One more thing. All right. Right now, because of social media, every industry is up for disruption. It's the first time in history. So before, you know, most black people, folks that come from where we come from, had barriers, right? Resources, know-how. I talked about that, like real mentorship, but even access to resources. How do you get to clients? It costs money to market. Now, through social media, I promise you, everything is up for disruption. You could start a hot sauce company, market that hot sauce, and before you know it, you'll be bigger than Red Hot. You look around at pillows, anything you can see, it's all up for disruption. And it's the first time in history that's the case, where people can go from whatever they're doing to become a billionaire overnight because they can talk directly to consumers.
That's like us.
I was gonna say.
We disrupted the whole industry when it comes to finance, and we have a show called Market Monday. Shout out to Ian, our partner on that, and it's like massively successful show every single Monday. We talk about stocks and investing. So shout out to Josh Brown. Josh Brown is on CNBC, and he's been on Wall Street for like 30 years. Good guy. So he was talking, and he was like, yeah, Earn Your Leisure, they got this show, and he was like, they're influencing financial markets. He's like, there's like 7,000 people watching the show live. Like, they're influencing financial markets more than anybody on the street.
Jeez.
He said that, and that was crazy, but it's true.
Crazy.
And it's like, you know what I'm saying? So
Crazy.
what you just said is like, that's
Game changing, man.
yeah.
Yeah, the disruption at its finest.
So I'll leave you with this. Make sure, you know, as you're doing what you're doing, have somebody legal doing your research, keep y'all in compliance. Because the more powerful you get, they'll be coming at you.
Yeah, that's what Dame
Just said
yesterday.
that. You know, he just said that to us last night.
That's what Dame said yesterday. That's a fact. That's a fact. Nah, I appreciate that, brother. Definitely. Troy, housekeeping items?
Man, I wanna. Dame also said that we should mention this, that there was a Wolf of Wall Street. This is the Wolf of Healthcare.
Yeah, the Wolf of Healthcare.
The Wolf of Healthcare. And I heard the word Prince of Detroit, but we might have to nominate him for another title. Because this is pretty legendary. That being said, shout out to Jetdoc. And one of the things I know that you guys pride yourself on is affordability and accessibility. And so I want to encourage people just to check it out. Mm-hmm. Just check it out. But yeah, shout out to everybody on patreon.com. That is our Proud to Pay program. Shout out to all the earners that are on there. Shout out to everybody in EYL University. The staff has grown, y'all. Shout out to the earners. And shout out to everybody with the merch. I know y'all see us with the exclusive merch.
Oh, speaking of Detroit, shout out to my boy Chill.
Oh, yeah.
You know him?
Nah.
That's Southwest T's son. And he gave me this merch. He's a good friend of ours.
It's very rare when we wear something that's not ours.
I hardly ever wear anything. Well, my man Chill, they just got in the legal marijuana business. They're working with Al Harrington. Shout out to Al Harrington, Viola. And they got a strand. And this was the drop of his new strand. So shout out to Chill. Shout out to his dad, Southwest T. Got a chance to chop it up with him. Good guy. Shout out to all the guys in Detroit, man. Yeah. Real solid, old school type of just get money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a good vibe out there. Like,
that's my city.
Like
that's my city.
Yeah, I like it, man. So shout out to my boy Chill, man.
Yeah, but again, shout out to the merch team. Shout out to our boy Mike Bogard for the exclusive drops. We got something that we brewing, y'all. Trust me, it's gonna be major. Yeah, love is love.
Thank you guys for rocking with us. We'll see you next week. Peace.
My graduates from my school being Forbes, bag drop.
Bag drop.
A mic drop, bag drop.
Bag drop.